So thank you for taking the time to listen to our presentation. My name is Staffan Hillberg. I'm the CEO of Heliospectra. I've been with the company for about 7 years, and so I've taken it through many ups and downs, and we're doing really well this time. So the company was founded in 2006 in Sweden, and our background is in understanding plants and plant biology. So we've built our systems based on that expertise. We don't come out of the engineering space, we come out of the plant space, and this is a very important distinction. What we're doing is we're creating a systems-based approach, which gives us the opportunities for add-on sales and recurrent revenue opportunities. When we started, we developed this together with HLSPY, Europe's largest grower of fresh herbs. So we really come out of the greenhouse space. We have a patent portfolio that we'll talk about. We've raised about $21 million in capital over the years. We're a public company, so we're traded in Sweden, where our main listing is, but we're also traded in the US on OTCQB, and our ticker is HLSPY. We're about 26 employees, 19 in Sweden and 7 in the US. So we've had a really good year. We started selling our products really in 2014, and 2015 was a really great year for us. So we did 40% increase, and this year, through the half-year report, we've increased our sales with 150%. And if you take the latest sale that we announced this summer to a large ag tech company, which is not billed in Q2, which is billed in Q3, we're well above our last year's sales already. So it's a really good evolution on the sales side. And this is really what it's all about. It's about light and how light affects plants. And if you're a photographer, you know that you have a different light in the morning and different light in the evening and during the midday. And it's the same thing for plants. They use the changes in spectrum to affect how they are growing. A plant will take a signal in the morning to wake up and start its chemical processes, and then in the evening it needs a signal to shut down and go to sleep. You know, we need our coffee in the morning, and we need something else in the evening to chill out. It's the same thing for plants. And in the midday, it's a bright white light, basically. So we can use this to our advantage, and we can control the way plants are growing. We can make them healthier, taste better. We can increase yield. So there are many parameters we can affect with light, just lone light. And this works with all types of plants. We do it with your basic herbs. We do it with lettuce. We do it with tomatoes, tobacco, cannabis, and we also do it with algae. So we closed a big deal this year with a large algae grower in Scandinavia. So that is just another plant for us. Now, if you look at the current systems in any type of growing environment, and this doesn't matter if it's a greenhouse or if it's an indoor grow, which is typically what's used in cannabis, they're using what's called a high-pressure sodium light. This is your basic street light, and the disadvantage is that if you look at this graph, you see a spike up in the red part. This is infrared. It's basically heat, so there's a lot of heat being emitted from that light. And there's also a peak in the green and yellow part of the spectrum. This is why your street light is basically orange in the evening. The green line represents the complete spectrum that plants want. And as you see, they want a much wider spectrum. And there's a very bad fit between the HPS light and what the plant wants. The white light represents what we can do with our light. So we can actually build up our own spectrum using LEDs of different wavelengths, and by controlling the spectrum, we can actually affect how the plants are grown. And there is no heat coming from the LEDs, so there's no heat emitted in the light. And this is a big advantage because you're not heating up your growing environment, which means you don't have to cool it down later on. Now, this obviously has a number of advantages for customers, and what you see here is a basil, which is a very large green crop, and we'll talk about cannabis as well, of course, but this works for all types of plants. So you can reduce the energy consumption by up to 50%, sometimes even more if you account for cooling equipment. You're reducing waste because you're producing a much higher quality plant, which means you don't discard as much. You have a longer shelf life for the product. You create sturdier and healthier plants that can stand up straight, handle transportation, and also can hold flowers much better. If it's a basil, it's better tasting, and if it's a cannabis, you create better terpenes and cannabinoids. You can affect the nutrients, you can improve the yield, plus you can also adjust production to demand. If you're in a big greenhouse and you're producing lettuce or herbs, then it's all about logistics. So you don't want your crop to be ready too soon or too light, so you can actually control the production. What we're also working on is a plant sensor. So what most people don't know is that plants will actually give us signals as well. They will tell us if they are lacking water, if they're not getting enough light, if they're being attacked by insects, and they can also reflect back parts of the spectrum that they're not using in an optimal way. So by understanding how much it's reflecting back in the different parts of the spectrum, we can understand when the plant is being saturated in the different colors. And then it will also generate what's called a fluorescent signal. This is when it's being attacked by insects, lacking water. So by detecting these two types of signals, we can actually understand how the plant is feeling and how it's using the light. It's like thinking the temperature on a human being, basically. And obviously we can put that into our system and we can drive this. And this is really what we have patented. So we submitted our first patent in 2007, which is now approved all over the world. And we have another 6 additional patents pending and more that we are working around the same core technology. So this is, again, the system approach composed of adjustable LED lights where we can adjust the spectrum over the internet. We have the sensors and the software around this. So we have a lot of software development in our company with algorithms being developed. Now, if you look at our product matrix today, we started selling out the hardware, and this is our portfolio today. You have the LX systems, where you have an adjustable spectrum. These lights are Internet of Things devices. The RX30 for research type of customers. And then we have the static spectrums, the E-series, and we also have the light bar, which is aimed more for vertical farming type of activities. So we have a complete portfolio of hardware. Now, we're also using a platform approach. So if you look at the LX series, the E60 series, and the RX, they're using the same type of mechanical and electrical platform. That means we can reuse many of the components, which gives us economies of scale regardless of which product we're selling. So that's a big advantage for us. Most of our parts are being produced in China. Then we're assembling these in Sweden. So it's very high quality. We quality check each individual light. And if you look at some of the videos from our website, you can see how they're being checked by authorities against water and everything. So it's a really high quality. We consider all our customers to be mission critical customers. So these units are not allowed to fail. And as an example, the fan is a 70,000 hour fan. The LEDs will last more than 50,000 hours. So it's all top grade equipment, which is very important. So our devices are on the internet. We can control our lights that have built-in web interfaces. That means you can actually change the spectrum on the fly. You can monitor critical parameters like temperature as well. You can have alarms being set, and you can control one or group lights together. You can have many groups or one group alone. So it's a very flexible system for the user. And you can also use any type of device to control our lights using a computer or an iPad or a smartphone. It's very flexible. We do all our light regime development here in Sweden. So we are part of the Swedish Institute for Food and Biotech. In the upper hand right corner, we have a labs up there where we have 25 plant chambers where we can grow different types of crops. We have our own plant biologists that have PhDs, so they understand everything about plants. And this is how we experiment with light and plants and really understanding how plants are being affected by light. The rooms are temperature and humidity controlled and food grade rooms. When we started selling to the research market, and when you start selling products, typically they're more expensive, and this is a good market to start with, and we've made some really good headways into this market. It's a much bigger market than most people understand. If You take some of the large ag tech companies in the world, which are Fortune 100 companies. We did close a very large deal with a company like that this summer, and they had bought some units last year as well. So that was a recurring customer coming back. We're working with NASA when they came out of the expedition where they locked people up in Hawaii quite recently. They used our lights to grow food. We have a joint venture with the German Space Agency, so we're actually growing food next year and on the South Pole together with them. We're working with MIT Media Lab. So we have customers all over the world in the research space. And this is also important because you have researchers going from this market to the greenhouse market and also to the cannabis market. So there's a lot of communication between all these types of markets. And it is much, much bigger than people think. If you take a large company selling pesticides or fertilizers or seeds, they have huge growing facilities, both indoors and in greenhouses. Here's the station in the South Pole. This is a very interesting area because you cannot get to this part of the world 180 days a year. So they really have to bring everything they need. And they will use our system to grow food. And this is what's called a controlled environment agriculture. And of course, if you can grow in this type of environment, then you can grow anywhere in the world or in the space for that matter. And it's a very good way for us to work with our products and get feedback and work on innovation, which we then can bring back into the commercial area. Now, greenhouse market is the second market we started working with. That is a really big market. It's bigger than the cannabis market alone. There's about 56 million HPS lights worldwide in greenhouses, and they need to be replaced over time. They replace the bulbs quite often. And with a system like ours, you don't need to replace the bulbs because the LEDs will last 50,000 hours plus. This is a picture from SPYSA here in Sweden. This is, again, the largest grower of fresh herbs in Europe. They have greenhouses in Sweden, Portugal, Poland, Czechoslovakia, UK. And so we're making some really good headways with them. And here you see our lights up in the roof. Now we're going to show a video. So I'm going to ask Derwin to bring up the first video. And we'll show a video from a vertical farming installation that we did.
Okay, Staffan, give me a couple of seconds to queue up video.
So what's happening with this market is changing, and people are starting to grow in what's called vertical farming. So with our light bars, we made some really good headways into that market. We did the largest installation here in Scandinavia, and we're going to show you a 60-second clip from that installation.
Hi, my name is Staffan Hillberg. I'm the CEO of Heliospectra. We are here at SPYSA, Europe's largest grower of fresh herbs. Heliospectra has installed the largest vertical farm in Scandinavia using our LED light bars.
My name is Ulf Johnson. I've been in this company for 30 years. I'm actually the founder of the SPYSA group. We have been growing in traditional manners with HBS light, as you can see in here, for many, many years. And we have now, after a long time, been able to develop production biology under LED light.
Hello, my name is Paul van der Laan, Director and Founder of Createch. Createch is a company specialized in automating production processes and product handling. Our goal is to develop techniques which have quick return on investment and improve the quality of the product. We work on a high industrial level, as you can see in the packing area, and also with simple techniques, for example how we space the plants with a space tray. We see our customers as our partners.
So anyway, this market is changing. People are starting to grow closer to consumers. And as you see, we just did the largest vertical farm installation. And that means you're going to see much more of this all over the world. And we're working together with our shareholder Midrock in the Middle East. So we can envisage the same type of growing solutions in those types of areas as well. Now let's talk about cannabis, and this is really why you guys are here. We've been in the cannabis market for about 4 years, and we started learning by working with special customers, and then we ramped up doing installations with larger and larger customers. Last year we were voted one of the top 25 cannabis businesses, so we're very proud of that. We're a proud sponsor of Dr. Sue Sisley, who works with us, so we're very aligned with the work with war veterans and CBD, and this is a very important effort for us. Now, typically with cannabis, what happens is you're growing indoors. That means you are using HPS lights, which create a lot of heat. Then that heat has to be dissipated, which means you have to spend money on cooling equipment and running that cooling equipment. So first you're spending money heating up the premise, and then you're spending money to cool down that premise, which is a very bad solution, of course. With our solution, we know we can reduce the energy with about 60% and the HVAC with about 50%. We can increase the yield, we can improve quality, and we can increase the THC and CBD profiles using our adjustable light spectrum. And it also enables for a much more precise environmental control, where you're controlling temperature, humidity, and CO2, which also creates a much safer lighting for plants, employees, and the facility in general. So it's really about creating a much more controllable environment, improving quality, and saving huge amounts of energy. And we're going to show you a video of a customer called The Grove in Las Vegas. They recouped their investment in less than a year. So it's a major benefit from a financial point for these investors. And then obviously they're continuing to save money after that. Now, if you look at a basic comparison between a 600 watt Heliospectra light and a 1000 watt HPS, obviously we have a much longer runtime because you don't need to replace the bulbs. We're using much less energy, and we're generating much less heat. And at the same time, we're improving the yield for these customers. So it's really about how to maximize profit. It's one thing if you're home growing, a few plants on your own, but if you're a large professional grower, and this is really where the market is, you need to be able to control that environment. It is a production facility, so it's really about cost and increasing your revenue, so maximizing your profit. This is really what it's all about. We have a couple of good relationships in the market. We've been working with the American Cannabis Company, who helped us get into the grow. We're continuing to work with them. We have a relationship with Combine, which is the largest company in the world doing indoor growing environments. They started out in the research space as well. And we're working with other major brands like Dixie as well. So let's cue the next video here, Derwin.
Welcome to the Grove, Nevada, one of the world's largest LED installations in a cannabis grow operation. I'm Chris Walker, Heliospectra's general manager. Today we're going to talk to Kevin Bernacki, head grower of the Grove, as to why they chose Heliospectra for this 650 plus lamp vertical grow operation.
So at the Grove, we've got, currently we have 3 flower rooms and 3 phase 2 rooms. We have a 4th room that is just a veg room. And in the veg room, we have 3 tiered racks. Main reason we went with Heliospectra is we really needed to have a light that allowed us to do a double tiered system. A double tiered system with 1000 watt hide lighting would cook the roots and make the upper deck way too hot. We tried many different LED lights. We went through a dozen different companies and put them all up to the test. We built room that allowed us to test each individual light. So it really comes down to grams per watt is what we're focusing on. When we started doing the tests, we started realizing that Heliospectra was just doing a little bit better for us than all the rest. We went to Colorado and did several tours of places like Pink House, places that were using LEDs, and realized that the people that are using the Heliospectras were continually increasing their number of Heliospectra lights, which, you know, we looked at that as a positive plus. And when we finally decided to pull the trigger on going LED, it was just kind of our natural choice was to go with Heliospectra. They had the best light spectrum. We were able to mimic the sun basically with certain light recipes which other people don't have. You don't have just a LED light that you can tune down or tune up. We can actually mimic the entire sun range. We can go from blues to far reds. We can go everything in between with full spectrum. So when we first went into this with Heliospectra, we contacted Heliospectra, looked at doing a large purchase order. Going in business with them was probably a perfect opportunity for us because they had great customer service. They were able to actually map our lights from Sweden. So we went to Sweden and looked at their facilities. We went to Colorado and looked at different lights they had. They were able to come out and help us in every aspect. In the past, I was looking at using a lot of hide lighting. That's what I had done for years. And so the concept of being able to control my light spectrum to such a fine level was a little bit intimidating, looking at the fact that I was going to have to learn this whole recipe and learn all this light manipulation on the computer. And once I got into it and realized how easy it was, just click of a button, I can change my times, I can change my spectrum. I've mapped this entire room to the light spectrum that I wanted it in 15 minutes. And I can carry that over to every room if I want. I can change the light spectrum if I want. And the really neat thing is I can manipulate the lights for post and or end of harvest timing, because I can bring these lights into just a pure blue, raise my terpene levels right before harvest. And something that we just harvested our first batch, and we have mycene levels that are over 10%. And our most recent test on our Leroy was THC levels of 31.4%, which is higher than I've seen them on Leroy's before. So pretty good. Having a good relationship with Heliospectra has really helped us a lot.
So that was from the Grove in Las Vegas. That is a state-of-the-art installation, and this is the way the market is going. People will create these factories for producing cannabis. They need to control all the variables in the grow environment. They need to have a stable production environment. They need to be able to track it, record it, and also show that to the authorities in the future. And this really ties well into our product vision, because where really this market is going, it's all about the data. It's about capturing that data. It's about tracking it and storing it for future use. And by looking at the results you're getting, you can also use predictive algorithms in the future. And that allows us to turn this into recurrent revenue models eventually. So this is really where this market is going, and we have a perfect solution for that market with our sensors, with our adjustable lights, and with our software that's controlling everything. If you look at the management, again, I've been with the company for about 7 years. I have a background in technology and venture capital. I used to work for Apple in Silicon Valley and did a bunch of startups here in Sweden. I've been on a number of boards of both Swedish and U.S. companies. Our CFO, Håkan, is based here in Sweden, came out of some much larger companies. Chris, our CEO, is American, living in Sweden. We made some changes. As you saw in the video, Chris was the GM, but we recruited Caroline in January. She came out of Lumigro, one of our competitors, where she was one of the founders. So she recently became the GM for the Americas, and Chris Walker is continuing and spearheading our activities in the cannabis market. So it's a very strong team. It's a very international team with the company. And now if you look at our shareholders, we have 3 major shareholders that control about 60% of our shares. First is the Velan Group, which is a large industrial conglomerate here in Sweden. They do galvanized steel. They like to support companies such as ours. The Swedish Industrial Fund is a quasi-private government-owned fund, venture capital, that's been with us for a long time. And then we have Midrock, which is owned by Saudi Arabian businessman Sheikh Mohammed Al Amoudi, which is a very wealthy person, and they have activities all over the world, gas and oil, and a lot of activities in the Middle East. So we're working together with them in the Middle East, and then we have about 1,500 shareholders. We have about 20 million shares, 19 million shares outstanding. So why Heliospectra? I mean, why would a customer buy Heliospectra? Why invest in Heliospectra? We have an LED lighting system that basically knocks out the traditional HPS lights. We have track record with top growers across the globe, so we're a truly international company. We have a system approach which allows us to add on sales and recurrent revenue model. We designed our products in Sweden, so it's really high quality, state-of-the-art. We do the manufacturing and quality control here in Sweden, which is very important, but we produce a lot of the parts in the Far East, of course. We have a very strong background in plant science, so we really understand what makes plants tick and how to make them grow in a really good way. And then we design our systems around that, so it's really based on that knowledge. With our product vision, we're really fitting into what's going on in the future with the data, predictive analysis, and the importance of that in the future. We're not dependent on one market per se, so we are selling into 3 very large markets. The research ag tech market is larger than most people understand. Greenhouse market is huge, of course, and changing into vertical farming. The cannabis market, we know it's expanding like crazy. North America right now, but we see a lot of effort in Latin America. We see things happening here in Europe, in Australia. So again, that is a very growing market. And we have a really strong shareholder base. We have committed shareholders. We have 3 strong shareholders which continue to be loyal and provide us with capital as we grow, and that's very important. So again, my name is Staffan Hillberg. I'm the CEO, and I'll be happy to take some more questions. I know you guys have emailed in some questions, and I'll take a look at those and repeat them and try to answer them. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Staffan. I have sent you some emails, should be in your inbox, but I also have some questions here from the webcast question and answer box. The first question here is, you've shown customers in the research space, but what market businesses, particularly in the U.S., have you partnered with, if any?
Sorry, could you repeat that question again?
First question: you've shown customers in the research space, but what market businesses, particularly in the U.S., have you partnered with, if any?
Well, let's see if I understand the question correctly. Obviously, we're selling to the research space. We have a partnership with Conviron that I mentioned, which is a very strong company in the research space. So they've done a lot of the indoor growing facilities for universities and ag tech companies. So they are reselling our lights into that space. And then obviously the other 2 markets, the traditional greenhouse market and the cannabis market, we're making some really good headways into that market in North America as well. And today the cannabis market is basically North America. So we're getting a lot of our sales in that market.
Another question is related to the first question. What businesses from the Viridian 20 have you partnered with, if any? If not, do you have plans to do so? Can you mention which large growers are customers?
So that's a good question. We don't announce our customers unless we have agreement with them, and with the latest ag tech company, we did not announce that, although it's very large, over $500,000 order. So we're very careful about that, and we have a very high integrity. So we rely on our customers there. We're open to partnership with most companies, and obviously the ones on the Viridian list are very interesting, and of course we have a very good access to them. I'm sorry to be a bit dodgy there, but being a public company, we'll have to be careful about what we say and what we can't.
Okay, and some of the questions you have in your email box.
Okay, so question number one is there are many lighting companies entering the cannabis space. What gives Heliospectra an advantage? That's a very good question, and some of the advantages are that we are one of the very few companies that have a system-based approach, where we include adjustable LED lights with light spectrum, combine that with sensors and software. And with our biofeedback system, we actually have patent protection around that, which is very important. Another difference is that we actually come out of the plant world. There are many companies that are producing LED lights that they aim for cannabis growers, but they have no clue whatsoever about growing plants. So they just read somewhere that blue and red LEDs are good for plants. Well, let me tell you guys, it's much more sophisticated than that. So that's another difference. Also, we have a long, strong track record in 3 different markets. There's a lot of turnover of people between research, greenhouse, and cannabis, which means by playing into all these 3 different markets, we're actually leveraging them together. And that's also very important because people know us from many different market segments. So we have a very strong presence. For instance, we are actually presenting at different conferences, technical and scientific conferences. We're in Australia next week, where we talk about light and plants. This is another way we're different from many companies. Second question is, do you provide lighting for other industries besides cannabis? What percentage of revenue is cannabis, and what is percentage from others? Well, I think I did mention that we also sell into the research ag tech space and the traditional greenhouse space, which is now also changing into vertical farming. So that is very important. We don't divulge the distribution of revenues between those markets, but they're all very big and very important for us. Third question, how do you plan on significantly increasing our market share? Well, we're doing that right now. We're investing heavily in sales and marketing. We are increasing the number of people we have. The most people in the U.S. are in sales and marketing. We are increasing our sales through partners. So partners is very important for us. So that's something that we're working on. But with all types of partnerships, it's very important to have some really strong reference customers in the different market segments. And we've built that up over the last year. And using that, we can leverage that into our partnerships as well. How does cannabis legalization impact the growth of your business? A lot. The ongoing efforts in Colorado, in California that's happening is very important for us. California is obviously the biggest market in North America. So they did not do it correctly from the start. So we really look forward to a strong legal environment in California. And the same thing in the other markets. So we're going to see a lot of improvement across the U.S. And also what's happening in the rest of the world is very important for us. And we're already making some good headroads into other markets as well. And question 5 is what is the outlook on the cannabis industry in the U.S. and internationally? I believe I've talked about that, but what's very interesting is you have legalization in Australia, Macedonia here in Europe, Uruguay, in other parts of Latin America. It's going to be happening in Germany hopefully next year. The UK, there's a strong momentum as well. Ireland. Unfortunately, Sweden will probably take a longer time, I would say, for some reason, which I really don't know. So there's a lot happening internationally, and the U.S. market we talked about. And I think that was the last question I had on email.
And I got one question here, and it's starting, I think we already had a question similar. Can you identify your major competitors in the LED vendors, as far as LED vendors who service the cannabis market, and who do you bid against most frequently?
I'm not going to divulge that, but we see many of the customers in the market. We see everything from the cheap Chinese stuff, which is resold in the U.S., which have very high failure rates. We see those in the market. We mentioned some in the Viridian report, like the Moving Grow, the Lumitex, which are some of the more professional ones. Philips is not really going into the cannabis market. They have some legal issues there, so they have decided to stay out. But again, we consider the HTS to be the biggest competitor, really, and we like to have quality competitors, and I would say LumiGrow and Lumitex falls into that sector.
Well, that concludes our presentation. Staffan, any last comments regarding Heliospectra?
Well, it's a tremendous market opportunity. We're on a strong growth curve, and I urge you to, if you haven't already invested, take a look at our company, take a look at the reports. There are a couple of analysts following us. We had an update from Red Eye the other day, and check it out on OTC Markets and our website, heliospectra.com. And feel free to send me an email if you have my email in the presentation. Thank you.
And Staffan's presentation will be on YouTube in about a week. We are recording this live presentation. Again, we will put it on YouTube in about a week or two's time. Thank you, Staffan.
Thank you so much for listening.